Are you guys so excited? I'm so excited I'm back to book content. It's honestly some of my favorites to film, even though it doesn't necessarily do the best on my channel, but it is probably the most requested content I ever get from Instagram specifically. I do post book content on my Instagram stories. If you want to follow me over there, I have a whole highlight reel on my page if you're curious. I was really into reading in 2021, 2022, and then I had a baby in 2023, and that slowed down a lot. My reading slowed down a lot, but I'm back, baby. I'm back. I got some more free time, some more time to myself, and I have just been wanting to read more than anything else. I've actually been reading more than I've been watching movies or anything. I've also been consuming so much book content, like book talk, book YouTube videos. Like, it's all I've been doing with my time. Anyway, but we need to catch up, which is what this video is. This is like my first one back. It's gonna have a lot of things going on in it. There's gonna be timestamps down below for everything if you're only interested in some things. First, we're going to start with all the books that I read in 2023. I read 5 total. 5 total, which is really low for me. We're going to do mini reviews for all of those, and then we're going to get into the books that I read in January, which I'm filming this on the 31st. It's the last day of January. I could probably fit in one more book, to be honest, because I'm halfway through one. But I read 4 books in January, which is kind of a record for me, to be honest, and one's a novella, so don't get too excited. Then we're going to do a little book haul, because I've been buying a bunch of books because, oh my gosh, I have so many books that I want to read. It's kind of nuts, and that's so cliche for like a reader to say because our TBRs are ever growing, right? It's a cliche. But the books that I am anticipating to read this year are beyond. And then I'm going to talk about my priority list books on my TBR, like the books, my priority books on my TBR, the ones I need to get to this year. And I'm not going to share the other ones on my TBR because, like I said, that's ever growing. Like, there's so many on that. If you have any requests for book content, any kind of get to know me book videos, or get to know my tastes, or, you know, anything I could do that you'd be interested in, please leave a request down below. So the reason why I didn't do a book recap of 2023 is not because I only read 5 books. I think 5 books is plenty to talk about in a video. However, 2 of those 5 books I'm actually saving talking about for their own video. I read 2 Riley Sager books in 2023, and I am working on reading all of his books. I only have 2 left to do. I have Survive the Night and The House Across the Lake to finish, and those are 2 on my TBR this year. But once I finish reading all of his books, I'm going to be doing a tier list of Riley Sager books. So that's why I didn't want to do a full breakdown of the 5 books I read last year. But let's talk about them, okay? It's gonna be short reviews, you know, just short little things, just so we can get past 2023 and we can get caught up on the books that I have read. First up, I read Upgrade by Blake Crouch. I don't have any of these books, by the way. All of them I got from my library. I discovered Libib after having a baby, and that has saved my life. I love Libib. I love checking out books from the library. So most of, you know, what I talk about, I don't have the physical copy for. Utilize your library. Download Libib, it's worth it. Now here's the thing, I loved Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. It was one of my favorites. I think I read it in 2021. It was great. It was my kind of sci-fi dystopian type universe in a novel, and I really enjoyed it. However, Upgrade, I'm gonna be very honest, I was peak postpartum. I read this in March, which was 3 or 4 months after I gave birth. So it was a blur. I don't remember it. I don't remember a lot of things from the first 6 months of her life, to be honest. When it comes to consuming media, I retain nothing. I got to rewatch the shows I watched in postpartum for the first time again. It was kind of great. I rated it a 3, and I reread the plot a little bit, and I remember not liking it as much as Dark Matter. So I'm sorry that's not a very in-depth review. I don't remember a lot of it. I could probably reread it, but given that I rated it a 3, I don't think it's going to be a reread for me. Next up, we have The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. This one I checked out from the library as well. I also gave it a 3. So this follows Emma, who returns as an adult to work at a summer camp that she worked at 15 years prior, where 3 of her friends went missing. When she returns, more girls go missing. 3 other girls that remind her of her friends go missing as well, and then she's kind of like wrapped up in this case of the missing girls. Now, with Riley Sager, Sager, specifically, it's really a hit or miss when the antagonist is finally revealed, right? It's always a plot twist. It's always a whodunit kind of situation. They're classic thriller books. They're not like crime thrillers, which aren't really my thing. I don't love crime novels, but he does a really great, I call it a palate cleanser thriller, where they're really easy to digest. I don't think his books are that great. That's a lie. I think Home Before Dark, that's my favorite Riley Sager. That's one of my favorite books of all time. He can write some really good stuff, okay? He has done it in the past, but the Last Time I Lied lost me in the last quarter of the book. I really like the 3/4 building up to it. I like the mundane stuff that he writes. I think he's really great at like writing the story and like how I describe this, the settings, you can really picture it in your mind. I think he's good at that, and he's good at just like keeping the story flowing, and they're really easy to read. However, the antagonist reveal, always hit or miss. This one was a miss for me. It was kind of obvious, yet just a letdown. Like I'm not obviously gonna spoil it, but it just wasn't great. And then it got way too weird and like convoluted. But I did love the setting. I love the camp, summer camp setting, and I loved most of this book. So it was solid. If you like Riley Sager books, give it a try, but it just wasn't my favorite or one of my favorites from him. Next, I read my very first James Patterson book. I'd never read him before, but man, does he take up the shelves at any bookstore. Am I right? I mean, he is definitely quantity over quality. No offense, James. This I read First to Die, and this is the first book in the Women's Murder Club. It's a series of the Women's Murder Club. I don't think I'm going to continue the series. Now, this one follows 4 women who they are, into true crime, and they try to solve the murders that are taking place in San Francisco and try to track down the serial killer in San Francisco. Not my setting, not my type of book generally. Like the crime aspect, the detective stuff isn't great, which is why I've never read Karen Slaughter before, because most of her books, for one, I hear check trigger warnings all the time, and based on that alone, I'm like, I don't know if she's for me. 2, it seems like these are crime detective type books, thrillers, horror, I don't really know. One of my favorite book talkers, Brandon Baker, this is his favorite author, and he always raves about Karen Slaughter, and it has me so curious. I actually found this in my local little free library that I walk by all the time, but I'm pretty sure this is one in a series, or like there's characters in this book from other books that I have not read. So let me know if I am able to read Undone by her, or what's going on with this book, because I just grabbed it. Anyway, James Patterson, the writing is fine, but it's just fine. It's so standard, he's just such a standard author, just like basic level. Really, really wish I got trigger warnings for this one. I had no idea what I was in for. No idea. This was actually recommended to me and lent to me by my mother-in-law. Anyway, it was a little predictable, I'm not gonna lie. There's not much to it. It's just not I rated it a 3. It was fine. I just don't think I'm in a rush to read more James Patterson. Then I read The Only One Left by Riley Sager. Again, checked out from my library. 5 stars. I rated it 5 stars. Now this one was going popular, I guess, on Book Talk, and a lot of people were criticizing it. A lot of people loved it. So you really fall into the category of like a love or hate for this book, or at least a love, or it's just not for you, because of the reveals and like the amount of plot twists in this. I get it. It's a lot. It worked for me. It worked for me, honestly. I love the setting. It follows a girl who is a caregiver, and she's hired to care for this older woman who was accused of killing her whole family, and our protagonist was also accused of killing her own mother. So she kind of relates to her on a personal level, and then obviously we find out slowly what actually happened that night when her entire family died. Now, Riley Sager books, the reason why this one's a 5 still, even though it is so over the top, is that is what to expect from a Riley Sager book. I feel like his books are never realistic, sometimes a little predictable, but very much over the top always, and unrealistic, and that's okay. I want a thrilling ride. I want it to, jolt my head around like, oh my gosh, looking, like I'm on a roller coaster. And his books do that for me most of the time. He does do this one trope, which I will talk more about, and because it's a spoiler for a lot of his books. I'll talk more about it in my Riley Sager video, because I'm going to do a whole dedicated video to just him as an author after reading all of them. His books are definitely hit or miss for me, and this one was a hit. I've only ever rated 2 of his books 5 stars. That's this one and Home Before Dark. I don't know if Survive the Night or House Across the Lake are gonna get 5 stars for me. Okay, then lastly, for last year, I read My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Otessa Moshfegh. I'm sorry, I'm really bad at pronouncing names. Again, checked it out from my library, which I'm glad. I don't know if I would own it, but I did give it 5 stars. It was a really good book, and it's so weird. Like, this is what obviously it's very popular, and always recommended for like weird girl books, and I'm into it. I love a weird girl book, or I want the strange. I want the literary fictions, you know, where it's just following a character and nothing really happens, but they're like really fascinating and like you can't look away. I think that's what's really interesting about My Year of Rest and Relaxation, because she's not overly likable, right? She's not a good person. This follows a girl who has suffered a tragedy, but she's wealthy. She comes from like a WASP family, and she's very privileged, and she lives in New York in a apartment, a very nice apartment, and she decides, because of her like sadness, her depression, I guess, that she wants to try to sleep for an entire year, and then she thinks after that I'll be good to go and I can just be a human again. So she finds an incompetent psychiatrist who just prescribes her all these medications, and she's just mixing a bunch of them together, just cocktails of drugs and alcohol in her system. And there's more to it than that, but honestly I really liked the simplicity of this, that it was just nothing really going on. Like, there isn't like a climax to the book. I mean, there's something that happens at the traditional climax point of the book, and then like the ending honestly was kind of shocking to me. I did not expect it at all. I was just always excited to pick this book up and read more, because it was just so bizarre. Like, I've never read anything like it except maybe Survivor by Chuck Palahniuk. That's like something that's somewhat close, where you don't root for the protagonist by any means, or like the main character is just a unlikable person or like weird. I'm all for weird books. If you have any more, let me know. Although I have, I think, one of the most popular ones in my book haul that I'm going to be reading this year. Okay, let's finally talk about everything that I read in January this year, which now I've read them recently, so they're all fresh in my mind. First up, checked out from the library in the teen section, was Clown in a Cornfield by Adam Cesar. I did post a short little review of this over on my TikTok if you want some, you know, book talk content from me over there. Now, I did not like this book. I didn't like it. And I thought that was controversial until I posted my review, and I got a lot of comments, especially on Instagram Reels, that a lot of you also did not like this book and like agreed with my criticisms of it because something was off. So this follows a teen girl named Quinn who moves to this very small town because of her father's work, and she starts at a new school, and you know, she's trying to fit in, make friends, that kind of trope that we've seen a lot. And there's a clown serial killer that's slowly killing all the teens in the town. Now, the first thing that I thought about this book is that it's very similar to maybe like Scream or even horror movies in general. I think it does a lot of tropes. It's very derivative of other things, and that's fine. You know, there are ways to be derivative without copying something directly, or like at least make it your own and add a bunch of stuff to it. This just felt like a bunch of ideas thought of and like combined from other things, and then there wasn't anything added. There wasn't like a special character or like a unique perspective or good writing. I'll take good writing. I didn't enjoy it. I literally found a typo, a grammatical error, if you will, and I took a picture of it so I can read it to you. I actually took pictures of some of the book, of my critiques, because how repetitive this book was and how poorly written it was, in my opinion. Granted, it's YA, and for that, I have to give it a little bit of credit because obviously it's not going to be written, I don't know. I just feel like you can still have really good writing and still be YA. Like, I think Suzanne Collins wrote The Hunger Games really well. I really like The Hunger Games book, just to be a little cliche and like compare it to that. So there's a line that says, "Strong hands latching onto Cole's shoulders felt wrong, a violation of natural law." But there's an apostrophe for shoulders. Cole's shoulders. Cole's shoulders. And there's an apostrophe for shoulders. And I'm like rereading it, and I'm like, I think that's wrong. I don't think we need 2 apostrophes, right? There's this repetitive moment. I'm not going to read the character's name, even though they're not like a huge character. It's just, I'm trying to avoid spoilers. He grabbed hold of the bolt, which was still coated with Blank's blood and hair. And then he said, on the next page, this is 1 page, right? Literally like 4 whatever, there's some dialogue, but like 4 paragraphs later, he's like, Cole let go of the door and the bolt, his fingers tacky from Blank's blood. You didn't need the name again. Like, it's the full name twice. And then blood. We know. It was on the last page. You know what I mean? That's just an example of how repetitive the story writing was, and like, I just was not a fan of the writing. Anyway, I did really like how gory and brutal this book was. I was not expecting that because it's YA, and it did not hold back. Like, it is very messed up. Also, super fast and easy to read. It's written in a way that it's so easy to just power through, and it never was a slog to get through. I never dreaded picking it up again. Like, I did want to see what happened. And then the ending happened. I hated it. They could have just left it as it was, and then they added this whole other thing on the end that was so bad. And I'm like, could we have saved that for the sequel? Like, the sequel, I think, is out already, and there's a 3rd one coming. The sequel is Friendo Lives. Could they not have just put that in the beginning of the next, like, I really didn't like that. I did not. Anyway, 2 stars. That's the harshest I've been lately, and I just was not a fan. Next is a book I actually have in my possession, thanks to Eric LaRocca. This is Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke and Other Misfortunes. He actually sent this to me kindly, and I was so grateful, because I've always wanted to read Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke, and I knew it was disturbing. Like, I knew to check like trigger warnings and whatnot, but honestly, I don't think it was too bad. It definitely wasn't too much for me. And then the other stories in this. Now, I liked Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke. I really liked how it was written in these blog posts and these IM conversations, very Y2K, early 2000s. I really, really liked that aspect, the tech aspect of it. And I did like the story. However, the enchantment, which is the 2nd story in this, that's the best one. That is... I wish that was a full book. To be honest, I wished that was a full book. It was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. Like, I loved it. It was still messed up, and it was still kind of disturbing, but it was so gorgeous. I don't want to say too much about it, but basically a couple goes away onto an island. It's kind of like The Shining, where they take a job to like care for this hotel, but they're staying off the property on another little island, and they are grieving, and they're trying to make their marriage work, and then a strange man shows up at the door, and it has like a religious twist to it, which is really interesting. And it did remind me of The Shining, but honestly better, because I'm not a huge fan of The Shining in general. But it was just a beautiful story. I really liked it, especially, you know, because the grief aspect of it. It was just stunning. Like, I really, really liked it. I wish it was a full book. And the last story was really fun. I thought the last story was fun and very, very interesting. So definitely check this out. I gave it a 5 out of 5. I really connected with it. And the writing is beautiful. Like, the first story, you can, you know, read the writing, and you don't really get a feel for Eric's writing style, because it's all written as, you know, messages or blog posts or things like that. It's still good writing, don't get me wrong, like story structure and everything, and like moving the plot along. But the 2nd story is where it really highlights his work, and I really want to read other things from him, so I hope he's working on other things, because I really like the writing. Next, I read A Short Stay in Hell by Stephen L. Peck, and this I read on Apple Books. I just bought the book on my phone. I think it was like $2.99. It's a novella. It's just over 100 pages, and this was going around on TikTok. That's how I discovered it, and fascinating. Fascinating. It's about a guy who dies, and he's sent to this level of hell. There's different hells for each person, right? And he's sent to this library, and it contains every story that's ever been written, and every story that could ever be written. Okay? And he has to find his life story down to the last detail in order to escape hell. And it is just fast. It's cool. It's just mind-boggling. The size of this library alone. I love anything that takes place in like a massive, I don't know how to explain it. You know, like space. It's like you just cannot fathom the size of this location that he's in. And I really, really liked it. I think the writing was fine. It wasn't anything that I was like excited about that much, but the story was just so cool. Like I saw it. It was just so visually stunning, if that makes sense as a book. The descriptions were great. It was just really good. Now, this is another one I wish was a full novel. I appreciate the brevity. I appreciate the length of it because it's, you know, it's simplistic. It doesn't need to be a long story, but I wanted more of it. So selfishly, I wanted a full novel of this. Okay, the last book I read in January is The Need by Helen Phillips. Man, did this have potential. It had so much potential. And this let me down more than I've been let down in a book in a long time. Like, I was so disappointed by the end of this. But I still love it. Like, it's so hard. I gave this 3 stars. It came down from a 4 because of the ending. So this follows a woman who works with archaeologists. I think she's a botanist, like a paleobotanist, and they are digging through this hole and they keep discovering these weird objects, and they do like tours to show the objects because they find like a Bible and it's different from our Bible. And she also has 2 children, and so she's navigating that, and one night she wakes up and there's someone in her living room and she's trying to protect her children, and it's just bizarre. And then I appreciate where it went. Like the overall story I like. The reason why I loved it so much generally is because of the motherhood aspect is very, very relatable to me. I actually read a review on Goodreads that they were like grossed out by all the depictions of breastfeeding, and I get it. If you haven't been there, it might be gross, but there's graphic depictions of breastfeeding and stuff, and I loved that because it's so relatable to me. The motherhood aspect of this and like her connection with her children, where the story goes involving her children, I could connect emotionally to the main character, and that was really important to me, which is why I loved the story for so long. And then it feels like nothing happens. Like, I thought something was gonna happen. I thought it was gonna like have a climactic moment, and it just kind of fell flat in the end. Like, she didn't necessarily know how to finish it. It wasn't as like thrilling as I wanted it to be, because the whole lead up to that point was like scary. Like, it was like, oh my gosh, what is going to happen? But it didn't. I still like it. Like, it's so hard. And it's funny because there's ferns all over the cover. The cover's beautiful because my daughter's name is Fern, so that's why. I just felt like a connection, you know, mother to mother in this book. If you are a mother, I feel like you would really enjoy that aspect too and relate to the protagonist. Like, what would you do in these situations, you know? So that's really interesting because you feel like it connected. But beyond that, I don't know. I just don't know. It was great writing. I really loved the writing, but those are my thoughts. So those are all the books that I read in January. Some I loved and some I hated. Some were just okay. Now let's get into a book haul. So these are all on my priority. Actually, let's do what I'm currently reading. I'm currently reading 2 books. First is not part of the haul because I bought this, I think, last year, and that is The Beast You Are by Paul Tremblay. This is his collection of short stories. I'm a couple stories into it, but with these, I like to savor them a little bit. I like to space them out. I like to read stuff in between stories. This is so I can like pick it up, read a quick story, and put it down. But Paul Tremblay, one of my favorite authors of all time, if not my favorite. Currently, at this point in time, my favorite. So the stories are weird. Some are really short. And I'm still wrapping my head around it. One of these made me cry because I read the story notes in the back of the book, and it made me cry. And then the other book that I'm reading is actually probably the first one in the haul. Let's just throw it in the haul. Is Foe by Ian Reid. I read 100 pages yesterday alone. Super, super fast read. The chapters are really short, like 2-3 pages, and it just reads really, really quickly. This is also a movie with Saoirse Ronan in it, and I'm so excited to watch it. That's what really instigated me to finally read this. This has been on my TBR for a long time because I saw the movie and saw a little bit of the trailer, and I was like, oh, this story is like so up my alley. Like, it looks so good, but I want to read the book first. Ian Reid also did I'm Thinking of Ending Things, which I really liked the book, hated the movie. I love this so far. I'm only 100 pages in, but it is so good. It follows a couple who live on a farm, and a strange man shows up and basically says that the husband is on the short list to go to space to build this space station because we're leaving. Society is leaving. They're building like these spaceships up above, and it just gets really, really weird. They also say that they will be replacing him with like this AI, a VR type situation. Not really VR, but you know, replacing him with another one of him, which if you watch the most recent Black Mirror season is very similar to one of the Black Mirror episodes. But I believe this came out first, so it's not like he's copying or anything. But I have my theories on where this is actually gonna go. But the plot alone is just something that I'm really into. Like, it's just up my alley. So I'm really enjoying this so far. And I got this yesterday in the mail and read 100 pages immediately. So that's how much I love it. Next up, Weird Girl book. Like I said, I bought one of the most famous Weird Girl books, Bunny by Mona Awad. This is, of course, so popular on Book Talk. Oh my gosh, you cannot escape this book. I'm very, very intrigued. My curiosity is just getting the best of me. I feel like I need to check trigger warnings though. I don't know why. Probably because it says back here. But everything changes when Samantha receives an invitation to the bunny's fabled smut salon and finds herself inexplicably drawn to their front door. I don't know about that. There's like a group of rich girls who at this college, and they are like a clique, and they call each other Bunny, and they have, I don't know, it just is weird. And then the protagonist, who's usually like an introvert, she has like one friend, and she like leaves her other friend to go to the bunny's smut salon, and she gets involved in like the bunny's world. Don't know what that entails. I don't know. Maybe I'm in for a ride. I bought The Dinner by Herman Koch. I got most of these books, by the way, on Thrift Books. Some of them are new, though. I try to get my books used when I can. Like, The Need was used, but most of these are new because they didn't have any used copies. Anyway, The Dinner by Herman Koch. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. It's about two couples who meet for a dinner, and it starts off pleasant, but soon they have to get to the whole reason that they're meeting is that their two teenage sons were involved in a crime, and they have to finally talk about how they're implicated in this crime. It sounds like a slow burn kind of single location thriller drama book. Like, I don't really know. That's just me speculating. I've heard good and bad things. Like, I've heard some people say on my Instagram that it's kind of disappointing. So we'll see. I don't know. I'm just intrigued. I love the cover. The cover's really cool. Next is my most anticipated book probably this year that I'm going to get to, and I'm so excited about it. It is Whale Fall by Daniel Kraus. I heard about this last year. This came out last year, and it was described as Jaws meets The Martian. Obviously it takes place in the ocean, and The Martian's one of my favorite space movies, but I love that type of concept, I guess, of like being stranded and survival, whatnot. This follows a man who is going to the bottom of the ocean to retrieve his father's remains, and he gets swallowed by a whale and gets trapped within one of its stomachs and needs to survive and obviously needs to escape. So it sounds fascinating, right up my alley, thrilling. It's not a horror per se, from what I know about it. It's just kind of like intense, you know, like The Martian, where he's trapped and he's trying to survive. This sounds a little scarier though, because it's underwater and it's a whale. Last for my haul is Growing Things by Paul Tremblay. Again, one of my favorite authors. This is just one I didn't have in my collection, so I needed it. It's short stories again, and I just needed it. So those are all priority on my TBR. Well, the Paul Tremblay Growing Things might not be, because I'm reading his other short story books, so I might try to space them out a little bit. Definitely Whale Fall, The Dinner, Bunny, and Foe are all on my priority list. And then we of course have Across the Lake by Riley Sager and Survive the Night by Riley Sager, because I'm determined to finish his whole collection this year so I can finally do my Riley Sager video. I also want to read My Haunted Home by Victoria Hood. These are stories about grief, and she actually reached out to me to send me this book after my dad passed last year, and it's been waiting for me. Like, I have the PDF on my phone and I just need to finally jump into it. It's because I don't have like a physical copy. I usually forget, and also use it as a way of processing. I feel like that's another reason why I've avoided it, because I wasn't ready to like face that grief yet, but now I feel like I'm finally coming to terms. It's been almost a year, and I think reading some stories involving grief would actually be really healthy for for me. Then we have Mary by Nat Cassidy, another weird girl book, right? A little weird recommendation. I see it all over Book Talk as well. And I'm just curious. I'm curious. Now the last three on my Priority TBR, I'm actually the most excited to read this year. First we have Ghost Station by S.A. Barnes. This comes out April 9th. The S.A. Barnes author also wrote Dead Silence, which I read a couple years ago. Incredible. It's space horror. Space horror. Space is one of my favorite settings of anything. I don't love like sci-fi novels per se, or like sci-fi fantasy or anything like that. I like sci-fi in the sense that it's grounded in reality. Like The Martian, it feels real, but it's not. It's like in a distant or like a near future to us. You know what I mean? I want it to feel believable in some way. And Dead Silence was about basically a cruise ship in space that something goes awry and it seems to be haunted. Genius idea. Genius. I love it. Ghost Station, kind of what the same thing. Sounds very similar about a ship in space. So I don't care what else it's about, I'm just gonna buy it. Next is a book called Episode 13 by Craig DeLuey. It's a reality TV ghost hunting show where they go into this house, and it says that it's part cosmic, part horror, and it's told through journal entries, email, production reports, scripts, and messaging. I'm so excited. It sounds like it switches up perspectives, it switches type of writing, like style, and just the plot in general. Again, I love reality TV. I love Scream Queen by Ida von Belcom. That's one of my favorite like go-to comfy books, and I've read it multiple times. Highly recommend. But it's like they're filming a reality TV show in a haunted house, and they're filming a reality TV show. But these are actual ghost hunters, so it feels a little bit more like traditional ghost hunting TV show kind of vibe. Either way, I'm so excited. I had to stop myself from actually buying this because I've bought so many books lately, and I'm like, I need to get through some of these first before I just go and buy this, but I need to read that. And then finally, the last one by Will Dean. I believe this came out last year, and this is a thriller book about a girl who wakes up on a cruise ship and she is the only person on the cruise ship. Again, anything that is written about water on a boat. The Woman in Cabin 10 was really good. I really enjoyed that one. So anything where you just wake up on a ship and you're alone. That sounds incredible. I don't know much about it other than that. As soon as I heard that description on TikTok, I added it immediately to my Priority TBR. Like, I need to be reading that. I've never been so excited about my TBR, to be honest. Like, I'll pick some out that are kind of just random because I have a bunch on my shelf, obviously, that I've never read. And I'll just pick them at random, like what I think I'll be in the mood for. But this year, I'm in the mood for every single one of them. And I actually can't wait to read all of them. So once I finish Foe, what should I read? Tell me what I should read out of my TBR that I just told you. And that is everything. That is the book catch-up video. Hope it wasn't too long or too messy. I tried to keep it a little bit organized. But are you excited that book content is back? Because I am. I love talking about books. Like, I love reading. So I cannot wait to read more this year. How many books did you read in January? Not that it's about numbers. I want to emphasize that. But if all you do is read, no judgment either. Tell me what your favorite book is that you've read lately, and if you think I should add any to my TBR based on my taste. And also, what are you currently reading? Leave a comment down below, and I hope you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.